أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
السلام عليكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islam Today, Muslim Talk radio station for an hour on WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, and streamed live on WURDradio.com. I am your host, Qasim Rashad, and we opened and extended the universal greetings to all the Muslims and the non-Muslim family and friends with peace be upon you, assalamu alaikum, and we seek refuge with Almighty God from the rejected, the accursed enemy, Shaitan. We went on to say, we seek his help, and we seek his forgiveness. Let it be known, whomever Allah, or we seek his help and we seek refuge with him from those evil deeds or those whisperings that emanate from within our very own nafs, our very own souls. Let it be known, whomever Allah guides, no man can misguide, and whomever Allah permits to go astray, no man can guide. And so we close with the Kalima Shahadatain, and that is the two-part statement that every Muslim makes at least several times in the course of his day, and that is, I bear witness and give open testimony that there's nothing, no deity worthy of worship except Almighty God, Allah. He is alone without associate, and he has no partners. And I bear witness that Muhammad ibn Abdullah, to whom the Quran was revealed on what is now known as the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, is his slave, servant, and final messenger. Again, welcome to Islam Today. I am your host, Qasim Rashad, alhamdulillah. As we said, we have a very, very good show for you today. We have a very important guest for you today. But today is also a very important day because it is the 12th of Ramadan. And we have completed approximately 1/3 of the Quran and 1/3 of the month of Ramadan plus 2 days. It is also the 24th of April on the Gregorian calendar, but on the Muslim Hijri calendar, it is the 12th of Ramadan. This is a blessed time for many Muslims where we recognize and read the Quran and recognize the hardships that others go through our own self-sacrifice, from fasting from Fajr, sun up till sundown, and Maghrib. And we do that 29 to 30 days. And we do that as a community, mashallah, alhamdulillah, and we do that to serve, worship our Lord, Almighty God, Allah. And so we want to also tell you that today's show is called, What Does the Chauvin Case Mean for the Two Americas, one black and one white? And our guest today comes to us by way of New York and by way of Maryland. Born and raised in New York City and educated in the great state of Maryland, he came to Philadelphia as a young attorney, became a district attorney, and also went into private practice. Right now, I don't know if Philadelphia ever had anything the likes of a Johnny Cochran. Our guest would be that one person, would be that man. He's the indisputable, the irrefutable, the indubitable Doctor, as I call him, Tariq Shabazz, Esquire. Assalamu alaikum, Tariq.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, my brother?
I'm well. Hold on a second, Chief.
Yes, we kind of get a little echo there in the microphone.
That should be better.
That's a little better.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. No echo. We straight.
No echo. We're straight. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Well, I was almost afraid to speak, brother, after you after that introduction. SubhanAllah. MashaAllah, tabarakallah.
Alhamdulillah. Well, you're in Philadelphia now, dyed in the wool, as they say. Alhamdulillah. New York can't get you back because we ain't going to let you go back. So tell us, if you can, brief us. I know you've been on the program before, but I haven't met with you in some time, and I know probably some of the listening audience. Tell us a little bit about what Tariq Shabazz is up to, where you're practicing law, and so on and so forth today.
Well, I am, since leaving, I went back to the DA's office maybe about 5 years ago for a short stint as the first assistant. Then I ran for office. After that run, obviously I didn't win because I'm not the DA now, but after that run, I reopened my practice, El Shabazz Law LLC, 2 Penn Center in Center City, Suite 1900. And I've been doing an assortment of areas of practice with concentration more in transactional work. Still do litigation, a lot of litigation, but I'm doing more transactional, more civil type litigation. And I am recently signed a contract with the sheriff of Philadelphia, where I am counsel there. And so that's what I'm doing. That's probably my biggest client, being that,
So that's excellent, because you're still serving Almighty God, Allah, and the people.
I'm trying to, but I'm trying to do trying to do those things.
So I only imagine as an attorney, and that law and litigation is your passion, is your love, that you followed the Derek Chauvin case, and you're probably more cognizant or more in tune to the fine aspects and the legal aspects and the legalese of that particular trial and case than, say, a layperson such as myself and perhaps many of the listening audience. So tell us, what is your opinion on the Derek Chauvin trial, and how do you think both sides did? Did they do well? Did the defense do well? Did the prosecution do well, in your opinion?
First, I have to admit, I didn't watch it all that closely, one of which it was upsetting to me. So, and I didn't want to deal with being upset over and over and over again, or re-traumatized over and over and over again. But you can't help it. Every once in a while I went for recaps. I listened to news renditions of it, and I seen the aspects that they show on court TV after the actual day of trial. I'll say this: I think the Attorney General out there, our brother, selected a tremendous team to prosecute the case. I think they did extremely, extremely well. They put together a dynamic case. I think they actually brought a sledgehammer to kill an ant. With the number of medical experts that they called, the number of police experts that they called, I thought it was a lot in light of the fact of the overwhelming evidence. But we know in this country that there's been overwhelming evidence ever since someone first filmed Rodney King assault and brutalized beating. But that never led to people being convicted of those things that were being done. We've seen other videotapes of other brutality being performed and shootings that occurred to unarmed African-American men and women, or black and brown men and women, I should say. And even with the video, that wasn't sufficient to garner what justice should have been based upon the evidence. So I was very pleased with that. I thought that they were organized well. I thought they were succinct. They only made one particular error, and I think it was an oversight because it was so much evidence. And that was they forgot to give a part of the autopsy report to the defense, and the defense expert actually testified incorrectly about what he thought may have contributed to the death of Mr. Floyd. And if they had that document and was able to show that document, they would have been able to make out the defense medical expert as to what he was, a South African apartheid liar. He was paid to say the things that he said, and most of which that both parties agreed upon was the medical facts and evidence. When he opined and gave his opinion with respect to the cause of death or what could have contributed, he really stretched. As far as the defense, they did what they could only do. They took a shotgun approach to a sniper game, and they tried to pick at certain things, which speaks well of the prosecution. One of the things that you always want to do is you evaluate your case, you look at the weaknesses of your case, or you anticipate the defenses as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, you anticipate the prosecution's case, and then you begin to cover the weaknesses of your case as a prosecutor when you're presenting your case. Give an example. When they brought up his drug addiction, when they brought up his troubles with respect to that, and overdoses that may have occurred in his life, it took the sting out of what the defense wanted to do, and that was to paint George Floyd, Mr. Floyd, as something other than a human being who was brutally murdered at the hands of a police officer who exhibited no remorse, even as he lied, dying on the ground and his knee still in his neck. So I thought that I was impressed with the parts that I did see with respect to the prosecution. Our brother, I was very impressed with him. I thought that he was matter of fact. I thought that he was very articulate, charismatic, and talked to people as opposed to over people. And sometimes in technical fields like law or medicine, we tend to try to show people how intelligent you are. So we start using terms and phrases and jargon that only lawyers and doctors know. But we're talking to common people. So if we talk to common people the way we should talk to common people, then they can understand it. But if we try to talk to everyone to impress them or our ability to mix words, it messes up. So I was impressed with their prosecution. The defense did what he could only do in that set of circumstances, and I was pleased with the outcome.
Now, you're referring to the state attorney general, who is Brother Keith Ellison, who's a Muslim. I think he was. Keith may have been the first Muslim elected to Congress, or practicing Muslim, or whatever, but he holds that distinction. My question: why didn't he take the floor? Why didn't he personally sit in the court and prosecute that case?
Because he trusted the team. See, the leader of an office, the Attorney General's office, the District Attorney's office, the Public Defender's office, any office with that respect, and is normally, sometimes they're very good trial attorneys, very good litigators, but sometimes they're just good leaders or motivators or organizers or thinkers or strategic thinkers or politicians. Okay. And so if it was unnecessary to do that, and you rarely ever find it. You might have found that with Bruce Castor in Montgomery County when he was the district attorney, and that's because he just loved the press. And you see when his love for the press, when Donald Trump tapped him to go down during the impeachment trial, he was totally unprepared and a battling idiot. So at the end of the day, you rarely see that. We saw it one time again here in Philadelphia when the head chief defender, Keir Bradford Gray, successfully defended Michael White in the self-defense trial, a murder trial, that she was able to get him acquitted of. That's rare. She took on that, and she took some flack for that. There were people that were saying to her that she shouldn't do it. And, you know, I know Kia very well. I'm very familiar with the case and very familiar with her litigation skills. I mean, she's an unbelievable litigator. And so she showed that I'm not just I'm not just a person to put up as a figurehead. I'm actually somebody that's in the trenches, been in the trenches, and in our vernacular, I do this. You know.
I mean that. Now you use the term. They brought a sledgehammer to the case. Do you feel as though that is the modus operandi? This is how, you know, when we're prosecuting these cases of black and brown people being murdered by rogue police officers, that they have to over prosecute to win the day?
Well, I don't know if they have to. I think history indicates, obviously, by this being the first conviction of this magnitude, that maybe you have to. And I think that they anticipated that. They didn't want to go one expert per one expert. So they went several experts per one expert. But one of the things they had in this case that has never happened again, in my understanding, my 33 plus years of litigation, of seeing these type of cases, I've never seen the officers, law enforcement officers, the brother officers of this particular individual, his supervisor, his training officer, to the end, actually take the stand and tell the truth. Actually take the stand and call a spade, actually had integrity. And in fact, one of the things that we don't honor, if you will, enough is the fact that these guys, these men and women of that police department, actually, those individuals at least, came in and stood for right, not standing for blue. And that's very important. Now, there's two ways to look at that. One, we shouldn't celebrate you having integrity and telling the truth. You were supposed to do that anyway. But the fact that when they put themselves on the line like that, a lot of times they are shunned by other officers, but they did it anyway, speaks volumes. And I think that shouldn't be overlooked, and we should respect them for doing that.
Now, there's a certain degree of immunity. Maryland, the state in which you obtain and hold a law degree from, just did away with the Police Bill of Rights. And I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with the Police Bill of Rights, but one of them is that a police officer that's under investigation for whatever he may have done has 10 days before he even has to give a statement on whatever he's being investigated for. And so there are all types of things that protect police officers and give them a certain level and degree of immunity. So how do you think some of the things that we can do to help cessate that, to eliminate that, so that, or do you think that should be done? And do you think that that will help in terms of rogue police officers just pulling up and killing black and brown people?
See, the reality of it is that same Bill of Rights that they use, and I'm going to put it in quotations because we have a constitutional Bill of Rights. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about those same protections were given to the person that was arrested on the street. They would have less confessions. See, it's easier to get a confession from someone when you catch them at a traumatic time, especially if you catch them right after. They're excited about it, and innate in people naturally, with the exception of those that are innately involved with the shared team, is the desire that's placed in you to really be honest and to be compassionate. Now, there are people that walk around that's not like that because they have other in them. But having that, facing that, being remorseful, being sorry, that's why they press so hard in law enforcement to get a confession right away, to question you immediately, before you have time to gather your emotions. As we know, Islamically, you know, we are to really think 3 times before we speak, because in those 3 times, you calm down. You can bring yourself down, and therefore you don't say something that you can no longer take back. But when you speak immediately or you're emotional, like a lot of people are literally emotional, they say things out of their mouth only to not be able to take it back. So that 10-day period, for example, was a cooling off period. That 10-day period was for them to gather the information so that they can basically feed that information to the law enforcement officer so that officer can come and be prepared. In fact, if there's video, officers are often see the video before they even interviewed. Whereas there's video, but they don't show the video to the defendant before or the accused before he's, or even a witness before they're interviewed. And the reason why they don't show them the video, because they want to hear if they're going to be honest or not. But you show the officer the video, and only thing, if he wasn't going to tell you the truth, now he has to fashion his story or her story to what he sees on video. Now, I'm talking generally. I don't mean to imply that this is all law enforcement officers. This is all police officers. This is all anyone involved in the area of law enforcement, because that's not true. We have honest people out there. People are people. But we've seen in these cases where an officer normally acts, I would say, excessively, intentionally, maliciously, racistly against black and brown people, and shooting and killing unarmed or choking unarmed to the end of it, that it aids those individuals whose intentions were to do nothing to protect society or protect themselves, but to shoot somebody or choke somebody or rid them of somebody that they're really scared of.
Now, we've got callers and we've got questions. So we're going to go to the callers. We have Maurice in North Philly on line 1. Maurice, do you have a question or comment for Tariq Shabazz?
Yes, I do. That's what I can make lines.
Well,
I have a question, Tariq. Since you're from Maryland, and you know Maryland had the good time, earned time, and mandatory release. And I want to send a shout to District Attorney Mosby in Baltimore. With the overwhelming evidence that was against Chauvin, would have advised him of the mercy plea? Because the evidence was so overwhelming, and then the amount of witnesses, professional witnesses against him, it was a slight chance he could have won the case, but the evidence was so overwhelming, and he did try to get a plea, but he was denied. Would have advised him to take a mercy plea?
Well, before I answer that question, let me clarify something. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, New York, born and raised.
He went to college
in Maryland,
right.
And so I graduated from the University of Baltimore Law Center. So that's why Qasim said Maryland. Although I spent 3 years in Baltimore, obviously, going to law school, but I'm not from there. I'm not. It's no shade on them, but I'm repping Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, Brevoort projects. Now to your question. There was no prosecutor that I'm aware of anywhere in this country that I'm aware of. And when I was the first assistant, I used to go to these meetings of the Prosecution Association, the District Attorneys Association, that had district attorneys for all over the nation. And I don't know of one that would have offered a plea. The only plea that he could have gotten is life. And that's only if he was faced with death or capital punishment, because that would not have been sufficient for the community. One of the tricky things about a case like this is that it's criminal, but it's political as well. And the politics drive a lot of what people do in these cases. And that's unfortunate. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. And so politically, they couldn't offer him anything because they couldn't offer him enough years in jail that first he would accept, or second, that the community would accept. And so they put it before. That's why he wasn't offered that.
No, I'm not. Actually, I'm not saying for them to offer him. See, this is the trick. This is the trick. I'm not looking for them to offer him anything. I'm talking about as a defendant. He could waive his trial.
Yes.
They would hold a colloquy.
Yes.
At this colloquy, he would have a chance to talk to the judge.
Yes.
The judge was explaining to him why he was explaining to the judge why he's waiving his trial. Now, because he's facing second and third, he come up with different mandatory guidelines that have a mandatory release, meaning that he get 2 years, the state take away a year from the 2 years. Every 2 years he do, the state take away a year. So
well, had he pled Had he pled, he would have put himself in a position of mitigation, and that's basically what you're saying.
That's what I'm
The problem
saying.
is the problem, even with pleading, he would have to plead to the charges that are offered by the prosecutor. The prosecutor then, even if he pleads, and he would have to plead open if he's throwing himself on what they call the mercy of the court and allowing the judge to sentence him without anything else. The judge would, that doesn't mean that the prosecutor couldn't ask for consecutive time for the 3 charges that he was sentenced. There is in Minnesota, there is a statutory regulation criminally that if you're convicted of those 3, and they were redundant, by the way. They said if you don't want to get him on this one, you can get him on this one or get him on this one, and they got him on all 3. In Pennsylvania, you wouldn't have had all 3. If you're charged with first, third, and manslaughter, you will begin deliberating on first-degree murder. If you're acquitted of the first-degree murder, then the jury would go to third. And if you're acquitted on third-degree murder, then the jury would go to manslaughter. If, in fact, you're found guilty of the first-degree murder, they don't even deliberate on the other 2. But in Minnesota, as you see, they deliberated on all of them. The prosecutor would have argued, no matter what how passionate. First of all, you know this guy had no remorse. He's never shown remorse. In fact, it was more arrogance after the fact that the man was laying on the ground and the EMT was trying to get him up. So I would, and even after the verdict, he didn't show remorse, he showed more arrogance than anything else. So I think that's the first problem. Secondly, then he puts everything on this judge. I don't know anything about this judge. I don't know the sentencing practices of this judge. I don't know if this is a judge with integrity. I don't know anything like that. And that would go into play as to whether or not you plead open without any negotiations in front of a judge. If the judge has a reputation of sentencing somebody up the river for a long time, you don't want to plead open in front of them. If the judge has a reputation of being lenient, then you might want to consider it. But it still would have put that judge in a position. Again, remember, this is criminal and political, and it would have put the prosecutor in a position to bring up so many different things that are unchallenged. And so I can't get into the brain of the defense attorney, but I can see how that would have prohibited them from trying to make this particular choice. What he went for was jury nullification. He wanted to say, don't believe your eyes. Believe that this is a law enforcement officer. He's protecting you. He was the bad guy, and one of the bad guys just got killed. That has been the defense from time immemorial in all these cases. And the majority of times, in fact, other than this time, quite frankly, when there's a white law enforcement officer that shoots an unarmed or chokes an unarmed or smothers an unarmed or bangs an unarmed man's head into the scene, however the homicide occurs of a black and brown man or woman, went to a jury trial in this instance. I mean, they were able to nullify the facts and the evidence, and the jury just came back and acquitted them. So, I mean, there's so many things that go into an attorney and his client making a decision whether or not they're going to do a jury trial, whether they're going to do a judge trial, whether they're going to plead open, whether they're going to seek a negotiated plea. And I'm not privy, unfortunately, to any of those things. And unlike a lot of my colleagues, I'm not going to pontificate and give an opinion about what I think was in the mind of someone else. I don't know what I think was in their mind. All I know is these are the circumstances that you look at, and you make a decision based upon you and your client's consultation.
All right, Dr. Shabazz, we got another caller on line 2. We've got Daryl on line 2. Daryl, are you still there?
Yes.
Do you have a question or a comment for
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Tariq Shabazz?
Yes, I do. I'm looking at over the years, when a corporation does damage to a group of people, there's a class action lawsuit that can be filed against the company that did wrong, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so since we have been here, the history, the evidence, documented, written, visual, the list goes on and on. This system has done us wrong, right?
Yes.
In general, it has. Now, why could we not collectively, instead of just waiting for senators and congressmen and so on with the games that they play, why could we collectively not file class action lawsuit against the legal or the judicial system? Put the system on trial. Because to me, men put the system together. And if men put it together and they came up with these rules and laws, they came up with, we can dismantle them by coming at the system from a different approach. Because I don't understand, just at this point, for all of these years, for the things that are still going on, in 2021, going into 22, it has not changed. And I think it hasn't changed because we keep going at it the same way that we've been doing it. We haven't changed the game collectively. Because if you took half the number of people from protesting in the street, took that same energy, transferred it over to the system and who makes the decisions between the city council with the contracts, the municipalities, these insurance companies who are backing these districts. I mean, if you look at it, you can see how the whole system is set up, and it's a money-making process. They're making money in this thing too, but it goes back to the point that I'm trying to make is: can we do something on our own instead of sitting back and waiting for the next death to happen, where we can take it and we can approach the system on our own through the class action lawsuit?
Brother Dow, that's what the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is. It just passed in the Congress, and it's on the floor of the Senate. They doubt that it'll pass, but there's a caveat in that bill that would allow an aggrieved party in a class action or as an individual to sue a police officer for his pension and his personal assets. Now, what one of the senators, the Republican senator, said, we would rather you sue the police department as opposed to individuals, and they were willing to entertain that to see if that. But heretofore, and Attorney Shabazz can tell us, you couldn't do that in a class action. I don't think it was legal on the books, but they have put this forward in the George Floyd Police Act bill.
Well, what you're addressing is the qualified immunity. Municipalities, police officers, people acting under the color of law to the end of it have qualified immunity. In other words, you can't be personally sued or liable as a result of doing something within the function of your job, unless, of course, they're able to separate whether or not you're acting in accordance with the rules and regulations of your job, first. Secondly, the class action suits, as we know it when we talk about corporations, they have more than just the same result. In other words, cause cancer. The facts are the same. You use this shampoo, and as a result of using this shampoo, and I'm just using this as an example, it caused cancer. You can demonstrate that over a certain course of years. Each of these things, although they all amount to unlawful deaths of unarmed, for the most part, black and brown men and women, that's the commonality. Different states have different laws. So from a state perspective, there are different varieties of protections in each particular state. Some states may have more protections for law enforcement than others. Federally, I don't see that as you're asking me the question now. That would be something that I would have to look at really deeply. But I'll say this to you: if in fact I believe it was an opportunity to do that and a possibility to do that, and it would be successful, people would have attempted it already. Part of dismantling that aspect or preventing that is getting rid of qualified immunity. And if you are so egregious as to continue to do what Chauvin did to George Floyd, then you should be personally liable. But the when you have the total municipality or the total city or hell, the total state, and they are being held accountable for that particular action, the question arises whether or not you can hold that state accountable or that particular person. Once you can take the qualified immunity down and you can hold a particular person responsible, then that's different. You equate that with the system. Well, the major problem in any system is the people that run the system. This system was designed, there's no doubt, from overseers to officers. I mean, that's real. It went from slave catchers to police officers to security forces within there. There's no doubt about it. So it was designed on that back. It's like designing or building a house on a weak foundation. You know, you have to do something to strengthen that. There's no doubt about that. I am not for, let me say this because I know that this is going to come up. I'm not for abolishing police officers. I think that, in my opinion, and I challenge anyone to try to question my commitment to my people, my stance, my reputation, things that I did. It's clear where I stand when it comes to my people and protecting my people. Abolishing the police is ridiculous. Why? Because we need protection. For example, there are people that do bad things to other people. We have to have a way to deal with that, unless we're going to go to vigilantism. We have to have a way of dealing with someone that is indiscriminately just shooting people, or indiscriminately just murdering people, or raping people, or robbing people, or stealing from people. So
Attorney Shabazz, are you in favor? So you're into our next question, which is how you feel. Are you in favor of defunding the police? And you made it clear that you're not.
No.
What about?
You're mixing me up. I said abolishing.
Okay. What about defunding the police or reallocating the police?
Let me say this. The funding is, and this is my opinion, the funding is a term that was not generated by the people that want to attack the law enforcement system or the justice system. It was a term that was coined and pumped by people that were trying to scare people when you talk about renovating, or you talk about rehabilitating, or you talk about changing the system.
Right.
No, defund, no. If you're talking to me about a system that by defund you mean take some resources from one area of the police department and apply it to another area that is for having a system that mental health workers can go out as well. That you have people that can come and de-escalate situations, domestic or otherwise, and put more money into those type of things. I'm with that. If you're talking about, all of a sudden less police officers or less or not a police force, I got an issue with that. Because at the end of the day, we live in a society as human beings where there are some people that do things to people that hurt or harm people. And we have to have something in place. Something in place that's fair, yes. That's just, yes. That has integrity, yes. But also has the ability to deal with those type of situations that occur. You know what I often said? And I used to say it when I went up to Gratisford on almost like a monthly basis, speaking to my brothers, and shout out to them in Real Street Talk, some of them that I've grown very close to. I used to always begin in that auditorium by saying that some of you guys are here that you shouldn't be here, because there were things that happened. You didn't do these things that they said you did, or you were here because somebody did something illegal to you to get you here. Some of you guys are here, but you're here too long, because what you did you don't deserve to be in here this long. And then I would say to them, because when I said those first two things, I would get applause in the auditorium. And when I said this third thing, I said, but some of you are here that if you die and come back, you should begin your journey back here in there. And then I would say to them, you guys are not applauding now, but you know you don't want certain people to be your cellie.
Mm-hmm.
You know you wouldn't want to live to certain people because certain people have. I mean, brother, we have some people that are that don't want to do right. Now, I'm not talking about the person that has a mental health issue that was never checked. No, we need to catch that and deal with that. Or the person that may have an addiction and that led them to certain things. No, we need to catch that and check that. But I challenge anyone to tell me that every human being that they ever met or that they know is somebody that you can rehabilitate and you can do something with. And that it wasn't that one guy or two guys or several guys in the project like it was in my project, that they just didn't want to do nothing. It wasn't as a result of their mom or anything else.
The mayor of Berkeley, California, just implemented low-level, not pulling over for traffic stops such as tail lights being out, license plate being obscured and things like that, or for jaywalking and things like that. And he happens to feel that that will necessitate some of the escalation that occurs in these random police stops. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with that. See, that came out, that was born out of the broken window theory. Like, it's the broken window, so I need to really go check it out, because if it's a broken window, that means somebody got in there that they didn't have a key to get in there. They must have done something wrong. The whole random car stop because of a expired tag, a blinker, a light. First of all, the tags you can check. The blinking light, a lot of the times that's fugazi. Nothing wrong with the light, or the music is too loud, or the tint is too dark. No, they're figuring that if you're driving a car and it has that type of thing in there at a certain time in a certain area and you have a certain complexion, then it must be something wrong with that. If the music is loud,
and then they start a random investigation.
Absolutely.
Have you been drinking? Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? Where do you work? And so now, are all those line of questions, are they legal?
Well, it's a where you going to? It seems to me, I would tell anybody that's none of the business. I'm a citizen. Last time I checked, it ain't apartheid.
And the response is, well, what do you have to hide? Every time you respond.
Yeah, but that's the 52 fake out, bro.
Right.
That's the Vulcan mind trick, if you will, from Star Trek. It's making you think that unless you say something or you give them that information, that you're incriminating yourself. No, that means that you have a implicit bias that if I don't say that to you or answer your question, I must be criminal. You have an implicit bias that if I'm playing a certain type of music, I must be doing something wrong. You have an implicit bias that if I have a lens over the back of my light because somebody just cracked my light, and I might be on my way to drop my car off and drop it so they can fix the light, that I must have stolen or had something done wrong to that car. We need to take out the nonsense about these traffic stops. The reality of it is, those traffic stops like that not only endanger the person that's driving the car, but it endangers the police as well. That's why they're scared when they're doing it. See, they're shooting, and people are doing it because I would submit that there is implicit bias, but I also submit it's a lot of fear. In that situation, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going on. So I'm going to get you before you get me. There was a saying that they used to have in the police department. And I don't know if they have it now. And if they do, they're not saying it as loud. I'd rather be tried by 12 than carried by 6. In other words, I'll take my chances with the law if I'm wrong on this one, as opposed to giving this guy the opportunity to hurt me or to kill me. A lot of it is fear. Some of it is this, and I know I'm getting in trouble for it, but I gotta say it. We all had people in schools that people used to pick on. If you go around, if you grew up in Philadelphia, because I know when I go back to Brooklyn, not now, because at the time now they would be too old to be running the streets, but originally go back, some of the people I know that became police officers, they were the guys that were picked on, and they're the worst police officers because now they have some authority. Now they have something. It's like that person that spoke softly until they were elected to office. Now they're bullied because they have some type of authority.
Right.
There are so
You're right about that, but
there's so many different psychological stresses and I think signs that trained people would be able to see when you're screening people to become police. You know, and I think the screening process is weak. I think that the nepotism is too much. The training process should be a continual training. You should be continually talked to and counseled, because you can't see the stuff that you see every day and it don't change your life. So you got to be able to do it. Psychiatrists see psychiatrists.
Yes, they do. Look, we got to go to a commercial break. So when we come back, we're going to get back into our line of questioning. We still have callers on the line. You know, when you got a high-profile guest, you get a lot of calls.
It's not really, that. It's a high-profile topic. Don't try to put it on me. Mashallah. Stop breaking my back, man.
Well, you know, you deserve all the accolades that you get. I'm a major fan, and so is our listening audience. So you've been listening to Islam Today. My guest is Tariq Al-Shabazz. We're talking about the two Americas. One that you see for white folks, that when they encounter police interaction, it's a lot different than when black and brown folks have the same interactions, and often, sometimes, or typically, it can turn out to be fatal. So when we come back, we're going to go to the phone lines, and we're going to ask our brother Tariq Shabazz, attorney Tariq Shabazz, some more questions. Again, listening to Islam Today. Assalamu alaikum.
Don't let your family bear the burden of your final arrangements. Pre-arrange now.
We specialize in janazah services, traditional Christian services, natural burials, and theme services.
We provide repasts, domestic and international shipping, webcasting, and Skyping.
We service all denominations.
Our new location, 1924 West Hunting Park Avenue, Philadelphia 19140, 215-225-6600. Visit us at www.khadijasfuneralservice.com. That's www.KHADIJAHFUNERALSVC.com.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Khadijah Alderman's Funeral Service, serving humanity with dignity.
Nearly 26% of Philadelphia's population lived below the poverty line in 2017. There's an increasing share of residents struggling to cover the most fundamental necessities. On a national level, Philadelphia was among the highest with poverty rates. Muslim Serve's mission is to develop and implement programs addressing food insecurity in collaboration with local community partners. Fundamentally, Muslim Serve strives to uplift those in our community by providing free, hot, nutritious meals. This is done by partnering with a variety of local community organizations and establishments with the goal to bring comfort to those in need and to relieve hunger in our area, no matter who they are. Veterans, students, people with disabilities, single parents, senior citizens, working class families, and children. Muslim Serve can be reached by phone at 833-486-4370 or by email at info@muslimserve.org. Learn more about Muslim Serve and what they do on their website, muslimserve.org, and on their social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Muslim Serve. You're listening to Living Islam Today, an Ahmed Media Company project on WURD Radio, 900 AM and 96.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to Living Islam Today. I'm your host, Qasim Rashad. In our studios with us today, via Skype, is the one and only attorney Tariq Shabazz, who at one time was the first chair to the district attorney and served as an acting district attorney for the city of Philadelphia, and made a bid in a really substantial way and a run for the district attorney's office for Philadelphia. But before we go back to our phone lines, before we ask our questions, I want to put this out for our listening audience. UMM is having our annual Ramadan fundraiser, and there are 4 ways that you can give. 1, go to PayPal at United Muslim Movement, and you can donate that way on your PayPal. That's PayPal at United Muslim Movement, or you can mail a check to 810 South 15th Street, Philadelphia, PA, and make it payable to United Muslim Movement, and in the memo section, put the word Ramadan fundraiser. Or you can do it in person after Tawari prayers any night during the month of Ramadan, or you can cash app. And then in your explanation for the cash app, just put in Ramadan fundraiser. And that's $UMM Masjid. $UMM Masjid. And the slogan is we want to keep it 100. So we want everyone to give $100 this Ramadan to our fundraisers, but we understand if you don't have $100 to give, you can give 100 pennies. You can give 100 dimes. You can give it any amount that you want. But the goal is for everyone to give the masjid, donate to the masjid $100. And the slogan is 4 ways to give to keep it 100. And we're going back to our guests, and we're talking about the two Americas that we live in, particularly under the police state. And sometimes when we see innocent black and brown people murdered by the police, and the police, they get time off with pay. When they're out, they're having GoFundMe fundraisers for these police officers, and sometimes they triple their salaries, and then when they come back, they get that back. And it's almost akin to state-sanctioned murder when these guys get their jobs back. And I don't know if many of you know, had Derek Chauvin been found innocent, he could have applied and probably would have successfully gotten his job back. This man had like 22 counts or reports for bad policing conduct. And so, Attorney Shabazz, what police reforms have you thought of that could alleviate some of the escalating tensions that occur between black people and the police?
I think that I talked about it a little bit. I think that there has to be an extensive psychological evaluation, and I really do think that it has to be extensive. I think it needs to be ongoing. I think that everybody that's a member of the police force now needs to go through it, and if in fact they're unable to pass the psychological evaluation, or they have signs and symptoms or different indicators that seem to point towards systemic racism or systemic sexism or tendency towards violence or short temper, whatever, those things that lead to the senseless killing of black and brown people, then they need to get a job elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And absolutely, when you have new people coming in, then that should be a focal point. It also should be a focal point of trying to get people of like cultures and understandings. Why is that? Because someone that has, and I got to be careful when I say this, because somebody that looks like you doesn't mean they're for you. Let me say that again. Just because somebody looks like you doesn't mean they're for you. Clarence Thomas looked like you all day. I don't think he would say he's for you. So, but growing up in a particular area, in a particular way, with a particular understanding, it makes us get a certain amount of what we like to call common sense. But common sense isn't common with everybody. The common sense of the project is different from the common sense of the suburbs. Some things may be the same, but there's a hell of a lot of things that are different. And so
now
go ahead.
Let me interrupt, because we're running out of time, so I've got all these questions.
Then stop asking me all these questions. Okay.
Well, the officer that shot Dante Wright, turned out that she wasn't even a resident of Brooklyn Center, the city in which she's a police officer, and the city and the area in which she shot him. She didn't even live in the community. And it turns out that in many of these instances, a lot of these police officers are from outside of the community. They may even be from outside of the city or outside of the state, because the recruiting practices will permit that. So do you feel that we may need to have black police officers, or majority or all black police departments in black communities?
No. Police brutality is a illness that exists in policing, whether you're black, brown, white, or other than that. Let's be very clear of that. There are a lot of black police officers that, and all you got to do is talk to people in the street. There's a lot of black police officers that do a lot of dirty stuff to a lot of people that look like them. They're very clear. They steal money like a white police officer would steal money. They'll pistol whip somebody like a white police officer would pistol whip somebody. They'll do all those things. Don't get it twisted. People are people. The color of his skin doesn't make that person adverse to a particular behavior pattern. You got good people and bad people. You got good police and bad police. So no, it's not about the having someone that looks like us. Hell, we've been having, listen, in Baltimore with the Freddie Gray situation, I got it. Marilyn Mosley tried to do her thing, no doubt about it. But the police chief was black too. Mm-hmm. You know, the mayor is black too. I mean, we have black people in those particular categories. in those
Right.
Positions of leadership. Just because they look like us don't mean they're good leaders. So
Okay. Let me ask you my last. Have you witnessed the Ma'Khia Bryant shooting?
I did.
By the police
I
officer?
witnessed about 5 different angles of that.
Okay, give us your thoughts.
Well, I'll give you.
Was it a justified shooting?
I'll give you some thoughts now. I didn't give it to you when it first happened. First, let me acknowledge that we're sick and tired of being sick and tired of people that look like us being killed. Let's start there, by police. However, and I challenge anyone, if that was my daughter leaned against the car with this woman with a knife, getting ready to put the knife down in her chest,
about the lady
and
in
the
the
police
pink.
officer didn't do anything, that would be a problem to me. People talked about, and this is why I held off on a certain speech, well, why he didn't use a taser. First, I don't know if he has a taser. Second, I don't know if he's trained for a taser. Third, I don't even know if he's within the distance for a taser.
Right.
Fourth, we're talking about a split-second decision. Fifth, the knife wasn't like, she wasn't standing there holding a knife, and he told her to put it down and he shot her. That one, that's a problem. Here, the issue that I have with it is it was 4 shots.
Right.
People say, and only people that don't shoot guns say this. Well, why didn't he shoot it in the leg or shoot it in the arm? When you learn to shoot a weapon, you shoot center mass because it's the biggest part of the body. And you can go to a range and shoot somebody in the eye 16 times because that particular paper target ain't coming at you.
Right.
It's standing still. But when certain things happen and adrenaline is flowing, it's not as simple as people are saying. He had to make a split decision. You asked me generally, you said, well, was it a good shooting or a bad shooting?
Justified, right.
Justified. Listen, they have yes, it was justified, in my opinion.
I gotta go.
And I'm gonna say, see, and I'm not afraid to say it. There's a lot of people that are afraid to say that, and I'm not. And I challenge someone to bring up anything that indicates that I'm anti-us. You can't. I probably did. Anyway, we're not gonna go there. The bottom line is, it's justified in that you can use your weapon when in fact you're protecting yourself or another person. Are you trying to tell me that he wasn't protecting that girl?
Yeah.
See, and then at the end of the day, it was crazy out there. Did anybody happen to see the person?
The father kicked her in the head.
A girl in. See, I don't know what happened. And he didn't have time to go interview people to find out what happened and then decide, okay, freeze frame, let me interview and find out if they jumped her. Was she the starter? Was she a perfect person? Was she a good person? You don't have time to do that.
Right.
You have time to make a decision. We got to stop taking every shooting and making it, this is another George Floyd thing. No, it's not. But let me say this. We do it because we're sick and tired. We're sick and tired of having our children, black and brown men and women, killed. And I get it. I'm sick and tired of it too. But we don't become unjust because we want justice. Call a spade a spade. Now, I'm not applauding him for killing this. She's a 16-year-old girl. She lost her life and some parent lost their child. No doubt. But somebody was going to lose their life.
I'm getting the hook, Dr. Shabazz.
All right, well.
I wish we had another hour. It was such a pleasure to have you on again. You're such an insightful, voice for the people. Like I said, if Philadelphia had a Johnny Cochran, it would be you.
Well, again, I said stop breaking my back. Mashallah, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Casa, man.
Okay.
Inshallah, ta'ala, we talk soon.
Inshallah. You've been listening to Islam Today. I want to thank you all, and I want to thank our guests for joining us today. Assalamu alaikum.